This brucellosis was put in burster bombs and exploded over North Korea during the Korean War, and a plague did break out. Read A Higher Form of Killing, if you can find that book, and it documents what happened. But then look at this. Soldiers at that time who were working in chemical biological warfare were given disability compensation if they contracted a certain disease within 2 years of discharge. What was that disease? Multiple sclerosis. Don Scott says that he believes chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia are brucellosis derived. I noted in Bringing the War Home that from 1985 to 89, brucellosis was among the shipment of germ warfare cultures shipped from the American Type Culture Corporation in Maryland, near Fort Detrick, to someone named Saddam Hussein. And in fact, it was the United States who armed Saddam Hussein with the chemical and biological weapons that he turned against their own sons and daughters after slaughtering tens of thousands of Iraqi soldiers on the battlefield. Now, mycoplasma has been a long-time favorite of the bioweaponeers. Like brucellosis, it's a stealth weapon. That is, there's no inflammatory antibody response that a doctor can recognize once it's been genetically engineered. They've been playing with this since the 1970s when U.S. Marines and Air Force personnel were tested with mycoplasma, and guess what? Many of them contracted chronic fatigue and multiple sclerosis. Just around that time, 42 inmates at the Huntsville prison died after experiments with an aerosol, air-delivered mycoplasma and brucellosis were given to them along with a few dollars. But what the experimenters didn't expect was that 231 nearby residents in that town would be stricken with chronic fatigue, multiple sclerosis, lupus, cancer, meningitis, and Epstein-Barr after that experiment. The Iraqis were also very interested in the mycoplasma. So we have a new breed of stealth viruses among us, thanks to the military genetic engineers. Dr. Martin at the Center for Complex Infectious Diseases has found in a chronic fatigue patient a brand new life form. He calls it Viteria, part virus, part bacteria, part fungus. It seems to be able to change from one to the other. Symptoms are severe headaches and joint pain. So we have chemical spraying. We have widespread illness that has not been identified by doctors or hospitals. We have a lot of questions, and we have a few answers here. And I'll say right now that we appear to have two programs at work. We have the high-level spraying that we just saw the slides, and we've seen over this city as recently as today. And also we have something else going on, a low-level spraying involving helicopters and, more often, C-130 Hercules-type aircraft. And last summer I was in Pagosa Springs, Colorado, up in the mountains, a little resort community. I've just given some presentations across the southern and western United States. I was trying to relax, and I was walking across the main street in Pagosa Springs, and I just stood shocked as I saw a C-130 glide down over the town, throttled back, silent, right over this town, the spray, and then up and away. Well, this low-level spraying gave us our first breakthroughs in this case. And I'd like to show you just two more slides very quickly. Very lucky to have this. And these slides illustrate the brown gel that has been dropped in communities here in Canada, the United States, and England. This sample came from the central United States, November 1999. November 1999. And we were able to match it with a very similar sample sprayed a year previously from a low-flying aircraft in Pennsylvania. And eyewitnesses at the time thought the aircraft would hit the roof of the house it was spraying. And they had noticed tic-tac-toe and what they called weird designs in the sky. This is just one section of a garage. That's aluminum siding there that was splattered top and bottom and sides with this brown gel material. It was almost impossible to get this off even with pressure washer. This stuff is very, very tenacious. We think it's polymer coating. The first incidents that received widespread publicity of the brown gel was, of course, Oakville, Washington, in August 1994. This is a little town, 665 people, about 80 miles southwest of Seattle. And that month, that town was covered during a rainstorm with brown gel, and virtually every person in that town became very ill with what residents told me was a really hard flu that lasted from 7 weeks to 2 or 3 months. Cats died, people became dizzy, fell down, were hospitalized. And the state health department stepped in and analyzed this material, and they found that this goo was alive. They found human white blood cells, they found a Pseudomonas fluorescens, which will give you very, very severe upper respiratory problems, and they found an Enterobacter bacteria as well, and that was confirmed by a second lab. What they didn't find out is where it came from and why the aircraft were dropping it on this population. But we do have pattern and precedent here. We have some 50 years of biological experimentation on the people of this country and the United States and England, testing various biological warfare simulants that, don't worry, won't hurt anyone, but in fact did hurt a lot of people who were susceptible. From San Francisco to New York City, Winnipeg in particular, some 2 million people exposed in England. They used ships and they used spray-equipped aircraft to deliver serratia marcescens, zinc cadmium sulfate, a known carcinogen by the way, and other material that would show up very quickly in their tests to test dispersal rates and infection rates in the population. And the idea was if you made people sick enough to report to their doctor or the hospital, you could track the efficiency of these weapons on your own population. Oh, this is legal, by the way, at least in the United States. Section 1520 says it's okay for the Department of Defense to test chemical and biological weapons on the population as long as it's for research purposes. But in November '87, that law was amended and now reads 30 days advance notice must be given to Congress, and any human subject subjected to these tests must be notified in advance. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't received any notification by phone or mail that I'm about to be and have been experimented on.
So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. As always, please help keep this show on air by letting your cable company know you're watching. Or better yet, tell them what you think of the show. They transcribe every one of your calls and pass them on to us. We'd love to hear what you think about chemtrails. Next week, we'll hear more from William Thomas on chemtrails, including his notion as to why they exist. See you next week. Goodbye for now.
I'll say categorically, as a researcher and a person who's writing about health for many years, that if we look behind the illnesses afflicting us now that are putting people in hospital, this flu-like illness, we are going to find fungus among us. Okay, treatment. We want to be alkaline. Fungal infections further acidify our blood with their byproducts. If our bloodstream is alkaline, if we eat that